right? So do we know why we're doing this?
So we get comfortable.
Set ourselves apart,
So we get comfortable with it.
take the worry out of the process,
Add value or
add value.
Confidence. Build confidence.
No one else does that,
I like them seeing me as a professional, seeing different.
right? So realize that when you're doing this, if your natural agent mind says what? I don't need to do this. Right? That's like, let's be real for a second, right? Because you're going like, because in the short term, it does what? It takes extra time, it's extra work. You know, it'd be easier just to open the door, right? That's the easy way. And so we can go through, and so if we don't fall in love with the process of doing this, what are we gonna do? We're gonna quickly not do it. You guys get that? If you don't fall in love with this, if you don't understand really the concept of it and why this helps us, it's like you could, if you're gonna go farm something, you could just go walk out in the field and just start throwing seeds everywhere. You're like, but I farmed. You saw, I just threw all the seeds. That's what you do, right? But what's the end result gonna be? Sporadic, right? Are a few of them gonna grow? A few of them are, but not really, right? And so the idea is, what we always have to do, remember, where's the money? Did you guys get in this to make money?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna keep telling you guys how to make money. You guys can fight me, but I'm gonna keep trying to tell you guys how to make money. The money's where?
Yeah.
The gap. The money's in the gap. The gap between what? The gap between where everybody else is and where we are, right? So the more you look, smell, walk, talk, everything else like everybody else, the less the gap. There's no gap. So everything you do, from the way that you dress to the way that you show up, the way that you guys know why we have big folders? Because if anybody else came up with just a regular folder, it's not gonna be big. Why? Because it's a pain, right? And why I know most agents are cheap. Well, why would I pay twice as much for a bigger one? Because nobody else will. Why? Because I'm expanding the gap, right? And you're doing what? You're like, no, I want to shrink the gap, and you're broke. Expand the gap. So the gap is get big stuff, right? Why? Because it's impressive. It goes like, I don't understand. Why is this, right? And so when you're going through, you did a great job going through explaining. One thing I would say maybe a little bit more, I actually loved your pace. I thought you were great, right? Because it does, it shows confidence. If you're gonna go through and interview anybody that speaks fast versus someone that speaks slow, people always believe the person that speaks fast more. Why? Because it's confidence. Confident people speak fast, right? Just generally what it is. So what you always want to do is there always has to be a gap. You guys ever, if you're ever in a conversation with me, I always talk about a gap, right? So I'll always talk about the reason we do this, right? Because I'm always pitting against their other options. Because what are her options? Just call any other door open, right? And so we need to take that off the plate before they even do it, right? So you go, hey, you could just call anybody, right? Because quietly in their mind, they think you don't know that.
Yeah.
They think you're like, well, they're in the back of their mind, well, you know what, there's someone that will do this cheaper. I could just call any number. I could stop by an open house. So if you don't address it, they're always gonna have it in the back of their mind. When you say, hey, you know what? You could call any number. You could stop by an open house, and here's what you're gonna get. You're gonna get someone that actually kind of just let you in on a secret. It's kind of like having two attorneys on one side and you all by yourself on the other. Because when you walk in, they might act friendly, but do you know who they're being paid by? Do you know who they're working for? They're working for the seller, right? And so what I'm showing you is, it might not seem like much, right? Because you can go through those different things on the buyer sheet, right? Fall in love with a couple, right? And here we're going to go through fall in love with a couple, but you might even go, well, this really isn't worth that much. It doesn't really matter. In your mind, you have to go, here's the deal. Do you know why we offer the 2-year love your leave it guarantee? Do you know why why would we risk money doing that? Absolutely. Because here's the deal, because we know after serving over 6,000 clients, the chances are you don't know me, right? There might be some distrust or wondering, hey, you know what? The more expensive house I buy, the more money you're gonna get paid. What have I done? Just took it right off the table, right? You might be wondering, why would I do this? And what we found is that it's hard for us to be able to show that we're actually working for you in your best interest, knowing that we're playing the long game. Our team, we've been doing this for 23 years. And we only do that by having great referrals, by doing the right thing. So it might not seem like much, but really what it is us putting our money on the table, and instead of working against you, going, you know what? We're actually gonna be on the same side of the table as you. We're gonna be fighting, negotiating for every penny, right? It might not seem like much, 250 bucks, or I use 1,000. Might not seem like much, but when you contrast that to other people offering you nothing and being paid by the person you're competing against, all of a sudden you start to realize that it's actually on your side. Does that make sense, right? So everything you're doing here is about you going, this is what they're gonna get with someone else or nobody, and this is what this is, right? When you just generally talk about it, you go, okay, I guess everybody does that, right? And if they see that you're the same, even if you do an amazing job, but they see you as the same, there's no value. When you go through that, you should be getting all kinds of referrals. If you're not getting referrals, I can promise you, you're not going through our value. Because when you do all that, they start going, oh my gosh, I like feel indebted to you, right? It's called reciprocity. They want to do something for you. So just make sure there's always a gap. Everything you go through, contrast it. They're not getting, what are they getting? Nothing. Right? So contrast that, and it'll be a bigger gap, and it'll be easy, right? Then you don't have to go through all of it.